Welcome to Pro Players Elite Network Podcast. Today's guest is former Cowboy legend D.D. Lewis. D.D., thank you so much for taking the time today.
Brad, thank you for calling me. I appreciate it.
Hey, look, D.D., first question I always have for guys is, man, you coming out of Tennessee, how did you end up at Mississippi State?
Well, you got to look at it this way. I grew up in high school selling popcorn and Coca-Colas and programs at the University of Tennessee ball games. And even before that, they had a boys club about a half a block from where I lived, and the board members would take, little rascals like me over there to watch Tennessee play in 57, 56, and so I was a great University of Tennessee fan, but I didn't really think I could play with those big guys. And so Mississippi State, Tennessee they had a tough time after Johnny Majors left, say 57 all the way up to 64. And they just fired the coach, Jim McDonnell, late in the recruiting season. Hired Doug Dickey late, and the coach at Mississippi State was Paul Davis, and he was from Knoxville. He'd gone down to Mississippi and played junior college ball, and then he played for Ole Miss. But his brother was on my front door every day, and Mississippi State went to the Liberty Bowl my senior year and won. And Johnny Majors was a coach there. Vince Dewey's brother, Bill Dewey, was a coach there, a guy by the name of Donahue, went to Alabama for 20 years after he left, but he had some great coaches and not a lot of depth, but they won that year. I went down there, and here was Johnny Majors and these guys, and I thought, well, here, I think I can come down here and play football. Little did I know how homesick I'd get once I got there. But they were, and I got to sit on the bench in Mississippi State and Tennessee game, and State beat them, and it was me and three other guys determined that we were going to sign at the same university together. And I was going to sign with Georgia, and I told them I needed a little bit to talk to these guys about coming down to Georgia. And next thing I knew, they fired Butts and hired Dooley, and so that messed that up. And then we decided to go down to Mississippi State, and the rest is history. I think the best season we had was our freshman year, which we only played 4 games. We won 2 and lost 2.
Yeah. D.D., doing the research on you and stuff, and your time at Mississippi State, you didn't win a lot of games, but man, the award. I mean, you were SEC all sophomore team in '65, second team All-American in '67, 2-time SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, you had a lot of personal awards.
Well,
and you were, and just so the fans out there listening, no, you were inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2001. Man, you were the star of that team. What are some of the memories you have from playing at Mississippi State?
Well, we got to play the good SEC football teams, and every year we played Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and Ole Miss last 4 games, and it was a murder of the schedule. But the thing was that at Mississippi State, Coach Paul Davis put his arm around me and just loved me, because I struggled in school. They put 2 tutors on me, and we were going to leave Mississippi State during the spring football season and go play maybe at East Tennessee State or somewhere like that. And we went to the locker room, and they had me at second string linebacker. And I said, guys, I can't leave. And so the thing is, Mississippi State's defense was set up for a middle linebacker to make a lot of tackles. And I was quick. I was small, but I was quick and made a lot of tackles. for most of my life, Brad, I thought that the coaches padded my number of tackles, or they built me up, that I wasn't that good. And, I'd walk downtown Knoxville and see a guy with a leather jacket on it from another school, and I'd think, well, he knows I'm not that good, and that I didn't make all those tackles. Well, I'm going to accept that today and say I did make them.
Well, D.D., listening to you so far, I mean, and that's why you were as successful as you were and played as long as you did, is you had that, maybe I got to, prove them wrong, or I'm not that good. I got to show them.
I think you're right.
And just referencing what you said, I didn't think I could play at Tennessee. Okay, so the fans listening out there, you were an all-state linebacker in high school, so it's not like you were, incredible career. So, did you know the NFL was a possibility while you were at Mississippi State?
Oh no, I got down to Mississippi State. I weighed 185 pounds, and then in my senior year, I had to fight to get to 215. And but I just had no idea. I know that Paul Davis was from Knoxville, and there was another guy. He made the Hall of Fame. I can't remember his name. I can't really remember a lot of things here lately. But the thing is that the State played good football, and they would always battle. We beat Alabama 3 years in a row. I mean, we beat them up, but they outscored us.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't beat anybody hardly. But my sophomore year, we won 4 games in a row. We were ranked in the top 10 in the country, and then we lost 6 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So and what happened to us was we lost some key players, and we just didn't have the depth to play in the SEC. So, and then we went from 4-6 to 8-2 and 1-9. And for me to come out and make the College Football Hall of Fame and All-American, All-SEC, I know today that there had to be something there. And plus, for me staying around in the NFL for 14 years. So,
hey, look, I would venture to bet that you might be the only player that played on I think you said what, a 1-9 team or a 1-whatever team your senior year, and inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So D.D., even after your senior year, did you think, hey, I'm going to get a chance to play in the NFL, or what were you?
Well, there was an agent from New York came down, and he said I was going to get drafted in the first round. Well, so we're riding to Knoxville to go on spring break or something, and we started listening to the radio, and they were having the draft on there, and I wasn't in the first 5 rounds anyway, and I finally got drafted in the 6th round, and Dallas had drafted 2 guys in front of me, linebackers, John Douglas from Missouri and Ed Harmon from Louisville, and they were big and strong and fast, and it didn't look good for me, and but as things worked out, I have to tell you that I believe God was in this thing all the whole time, and in the sense of here are these 2 guys that they're going to keep them and let me go, because when I got to training camp, they knew that I played center in college, so we went up to scrimmage our offense against the San Francisco 49ers defense. Well, they put me at center. So while the linebackers are busting up the tight ends in practice, I'm over there learning the offensive plays. So one day later, San Francisco's offense is coming down to scrimmage our defense, and I'm to learn the defense in one day. So things didn't look good. And what happened was the real good linebacker from from Missouri, got drafted into the Army. And I slid in the back door and made the football team. And that's the way I got started. Now in '69, I had to go to the Army, and I went to basic training and got into the Guard, and came back, and me and this guy John Douglas had to battle for the same position, and they traded him to New York and kept me. And
you know, D.D., a couple things real quick. Incredible. Yeah. Okay, yeah. This is stuff that the fans, a lot of fans out there, including myself, just can't even imagine. So, so my first question is going back to how you found out you were drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. Did you hear it on the radio?
You know, I don't know how I found it. Going back. You know how long that's been? That's about 50 years ago.
Hey, you were going to spring break, so I bet you don't remember a lot from that time. So, well, somebody called me from the Cowboys. It might have been Gil Brandt, and told me I was drafted, and they wanted me to come out and, you know, and play a visit. And I mean, it was, but it. I was kind of disgruntled. I thought I was going to be one or two draft choices. I was going to get my mother a trailer, something like that. So, but with the money they paid me, I couldn't hardly get out of town. So it's amazing to me that now you're a Dallas Cowboy, and like you said, you know, you have to go serve your time in the Army.
Yeah.
So just trying to get the mindset of how it was in the late 60s. Were you okay, whatever's needed, or were you like, oh, damn it, I got to go do this?
You mean for the Guard, or?
Correct. With going into
well, it was you know, I didn't want to go to Vietnam, that's for sure, and I carried guilt about going to the Guard, getting out of going to Vietnam, because a lot of people are getting bashed for getting out and not going, you know. And but the thing is, every veteran I talked to said, "D.D., I don't blame you. If I could have gotten out of it, I wouldn't have gone."
Yeah.
You know, so somehow they got me in the National Guard in Knoxville, Tennessee. So somebody pulled some strings. And Gil Brandt, he could do about anything, I think. But I got in that Guard, and it literally, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and we'd go on these night marches, and it scared me to death. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. And I'm thinking, man, can you imagine being in a jungle with somebody shooting at you with this? It really, I had my appendix taken out there too, and it got infected, and I went to the infectious ward, and that's where I saw in the hospital there, Fort Gordon, where I saw these amputees, people. It really made an impression of how lucky I was, and I mean, everybody that knew somebody that died in the Vietnam War, and so it was made a heck of an impression on me, and I won't ever forget it. It was a tumultuous time for all of us.
And you know, for the fans listening out there, it's just something that it's so hard to even comprehend this was going on, and that, you know, America was doing that, you know, going through this at the time. You know, for myself, I was just a little snot-nosed kid, you know, 2 or 3 years old, and then, you know, like you said, you are in a hospital bed having recovery from a surgery, and you're seeing this stuff firsthand, and man, that had to rock. That had to rock your world.
It did, and I felt so fortunate, and so anyway, I went through that. I came back to Dallas. They had 6 games to go, but they already had the allotment of linebackers. So they paid me a couple $1,000s just to practice, and so I did that. And my wife was over in Georgia, and so we went back to Mississippi State to school in the off season, and I ended up graduating. And the next thing was getting back to football. You know?
you're with the this is an amazing thing, man. Here you are coming from Mississippi State. You get drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. You walk into that locker room and you look at the guys in front of you, Bob Lilly and Jethro Pugh, and I mean just all these Hall of Famers, and on the offensive line, Rayfield Wright, and I mean it had to be like holy mackerel.
Yeah, well, it was. I was impressed. It was amazing. Don Meredith was quarterback. And everybody loved Don Meredith.
One thing I cannot leave out, all those amazing players, and in the linebacker room you have Leroy Jordan, who I can't believe is not in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, and for NFL?
Correct.
Same with Chuck Howley. Chuck Howley was a gymnast, a wrestler, a football player, track man. I mean, this guy was so good, so fast, so big. And then you have Leroy and the centers the Cowboy flex defense was made for Leroy, made for the middle linebacker. And I don't know why. Some people say, well, if you take Leroy, you got to take Chuck Howley. It's just like they say, if you take Cliff Harris, you got to take Charlie Waters.
Sure.
So anyway, I guess they took Pittsburgh linebackers instead of the Cowboy linebackers. But it's always been something that sticks in our throat, and I don't understand it. Who knows? Maybe after these guys die, they'll get in somehow. But Leroy was he was such a great leader. He worked hard. He knew everybody's position on defense, and so he was the coach on the field. And he was an amazing player, And Leroy wasn't that big of a guy. He's 220,
Mm-hmm.
But he had long arms, big hands, and he was probably about 6'2", 6'3", and so he was very slim,
Was it a tough transition for you from playing inside linebacker to playing outside linebacker?
Oh, Brad, it was amazing. I'd never had to cover anybody man-to-man myself, and they found out that nobody else can cover a man-to-man, a running back or a wide receiver. Defensive backs can't do it, even on prevent defenses. And so here I am. I'm backing up Leroy because they got me playing the middle linebacker. Plus, I'm backing up the strong side and the weak side linebacker. So I had no idea how I was going to get to play. And what happened was the Cowboys brought in a lot of linebackers. Tom Stensick, Steve Kiner, a lot of other guys that didn't want to sit on the bench behind these guys. And so they left. Me, I had no place to go. So I stuck it out, and I got so tired of playing specialty teams and didn't feel appreciated. And but it paid off once Chuck Howley finally got hurt in 72, and I got to start. And I got to tell you, I feel like they didn't need, they didn't miss a beat. So, but when someone, it may have just been me. I figured I got to figure out a way to cover these guys. Say like O.J. Simpson. Here you got D.D. Lewis covering O.J. Simpson. He runs a 4.3 40, and they've timed me with a calendar in the 40. So what am I going to do? I'm lying in bed thinking. So I come up and I said, well, heck, I'll blitz him. He's got to block me or else I'm going to make a trap. And we were playing San Francisco, and O.J. was with him, and I had him man-to-man. Man, I blitzed. I grabbed him by the shoulder pads, and we just danced around. Then I threw him to the ground, and they threw me the ball. Interception. But that's how it was. I could. The thing was, the weak side linebacker. It just so happened that's what Chuck Howley played. He got hurt. The main job was to turn all the running plays into the middle linebacker. Mm-hmm. So I'd work against the guards and the halfback leading the fullback, or fullback leading the halfback on the I formation. So, but I could play the strong side too. So Dave Edwards from Auburn was a great strong side linebacker. Teams would take the tight end and put them over there where Dave was. So we'd line up. Dave's on the tight end. I'm over here on the weak side. They'd bring the tight end over and put him on my side, thinking I couldn't play the strong linebacker. Well, so Dave and I tried to switch when they switched. So we're playing Buffalo, and we run into each other right in the middle, right behind Leroy. So they have a big running back by the name Sam the Bam Cunningham, or I think he played for USC.
Yes.
A big guy and big running back. And so here's Dave and I fumbling around in the middle, and they hand off the ball to Sam, and he runs up the middle, and I hit him right in the chest. He fumbles, and Dave picks it up for a fumble. How can you can't script that as well. And so they didn't run that tight end across again that whole game. So things work out.
With a play like that, D.D., with Tom Landry, perception is he's this, this is my way or the highway. This is how it's going to be done.
Yeah.
So it's his defense. You guys run into each other, which probably drove them crazy, but you guys make the play. So is it, hey, good job, way to go, or don't ever do that again?
Yeah, if you did something outside of his defense, it had to work. If it worked, it was okay. Mm-hmm. If it did not work, we played Pittsburgh one year up in Pittsburgh, in Harvey Martin, our defensive right end. I told him before the game, I said, Harvey, when I give you a certain signal, you go outside and I'll go inside. And so I'm talking to Bob Brunick, the middle linebacker, and Harvey thinks I'm talking to him. So Harvey's outside and I'm outside and Bob's over there in the middle. Well, there was a hole there. You could drive a truck through it, and Franco Harris ran a 65-yard touchdown. So we're watching the films, and they says, Harvey, what's going on here? Landry did. And Harvey didn't say anything. D.D. says, what's going on? I said, Coach, I told Harvey before the game that we were going to do this and that. And man, I thought he was going to chew me out. But he just said, you can't do that. See what happens. And I knew it, and everybody else in the room knew it. So if you did something on your own, you better make sure it works. And if it worked, he wouldn't say anything about it. And but I tell you how Coach Landry was so good. I got in training camp. We'd always go to Thousand Oaks, California, at the Lutheran College there, and so every morning we do grass drills after practice. So, one is you're running, 1 is down, 2 is right, 3 is left, 4 is back, 5's up. If you make a mistake, you got to meet Landry at the track and run a 440. Here you are, your legs are gone anyway, and you got to go and you make a mistake, you got to go to the track and run for Landry. So I get to the locker room late. I can't find my jersey. So, and I go to our equipment manager, and he can't find it. And so I look in Dave Edwards' locker, and his jersey's there, number 52. I'm number 50. Dave's wearing number 50. He's playing a trick or something. So anyway, we're doing grass drills, and Landry calls out number 50. And so it dawns on me after we get through. I said, well, that's Dave's wearing my jersey. So I went over to the track and said, Coach, look, I'm wearing number 52, and Dave Edwards is wearing my number. He said, well, D.D., since you're over here, why don't you go ahead and run? Brad, what am I going to say? Coach, that's cheating or something, or that's just not right. Well, he wasn't that type of guy. I didn't think, but I could have talked to Coach Landry anytime, anywhere, but I thought he could see through me, So
Can Can you share with the fans just the type of coach Landry was?
Yeah, Coach Landry was a wonderful man. I mean, a wonderful man. And I could have gone to him at any time, but he wasn't the type coach that we all had in college or high school that would hug you and fire you up. So, again, I've got to imagine he'd come through after the game if we won. He'd have his game plan rolled up in his hand. He'd come by and hit me on the backside with it. And so I interpreted that as Coach Landry saying, I love you, D.D. You played a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Although he didn't say it, that's what I had to say to myself. But Coach Landry was a great coach of the Bible, good Christian man. We'd be in camp for 2 or 3 days. And at the evening meeting at 7 o'clock at night, he'd say, guys, your language is atrocious. We've got families bringing kids out here. And you're cursing. And what are they going to think of us and our character? He says, Jesus says that what's in a man's heart will come out of his mouth. And I mean, nobody would be cursing the next day. Now, it would come back because guys are competing. But that's the way he used his faith to make statements like that. And he lived it. And he worked very hard to live that life. And he was an exceptional man, exceptional all the way.
Was it hard to learn his defensive scheme?
Well, it wasn't. I tell you what happened, Brad. When I got to play, Chuck Alley got hurt late in the season in '72. So I got to finish out that season. We played the New York Giants, then played San Francisco 49ers, and then we lost to the Washington Redskins, but in the playoffs. But the next year, Dave Edwards had a Porsche. He had such a big engine in it that it didn't have an air conditioner. So he was wanting to drive it to California and sell it out there because you wouldn't need the air conditioner. So I told him I'd ride with him. So I drove from Dallas to Thousand Oaks with a cooler of beer between my legs. And when we got to camp, my back went out, and I laid up in my room for 2 weeks. Jim Myers, our offensive line coach and assistant head coach, he came in one day and threw me a book. It was called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And in there, Maltz was one of these guys that would change your looks. What do you call that, Brad? A lady would come in, been in the car wreck, and he would take the scars off of her and make her look pretty. And he saw that these people came in very depressed with disfigured faces and bodies, and he'd fix them up, and man, they had a different attitude. So from that, he saw that you could trick the mind. You can tell the brain what to think. So I sat there for 2 weeks. I ran through every play that ever came to me on the weak side out of every formation, and I saw myself take the block on, get rid of him, cover the guy, passing situations and all the routes that they would run against the weak side linebacker. And when I got out there finally, it was as if I'd already played 10 years in the league. I mean, I just didn't make any mistakes. It was unbelievable. Now, who inspired Myers to hand me that book?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't hard because I'd played middle linebacker. And I understood quite a bit about defenses, and getting to play the middle linebacker for Dallas gave me a picture of everything. So, and I understood that stuff, but it certainly helped me because we all needed recognition. And as you know, as a football player, you got to have some recognition. You can't just be a rookie all your life and be thrown out there among the old veterans that did trick you like crazy. Mm-hmm. So you got to and plus I made some mistakes, but it wasn't very many. So, like later, and I'll give you one, later in my career, we played the Pittsburgh Steelers here in Dallas preseason. So here I am, they pulled the guard, big guy, and so I'm going to take him on, and I get down like I'm going to really bust him, and right when he gets to me, I'm going to jump out of the way. It's called the ole. Mm-hmm. It's like a bull, you got a flag there, you're going to trick him. Well, as soon as I jumped, he hit me. He knocked me about 10 yards toward the sideline. Oh, and I'm breathing hard, and I can't get my breath. Right when I'm getting up, he hits me again. And I thought, son, it's time to get out of the game. They'd caught up with me, my little correction.
It's a good thing you didn't go over and do that run with the Bulls with your experience on the ole.
Yeah, right, really. Oh, boy.
D.D., during your incredible career with the Cowboys, you played with some incredible players. And for the fans out there, I'd like to just, you've talked about Leroy Jordan, you've talked about Chuck Howley, we've talked about Tom Landry. I'd like to just throw some more names at you and get some memories of them. Mr. Cowboy, Bob Lilly.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bob was exceptional. He would lie in training camp in bed. I didn't know what he was like at home, but I know in training camp, he'd lie in bed, and he'd lie there, eyes wide open, and try to touch his eyeball without blinking. Now, and we said, what are you doing, Bob? He said, well, just think about it. Here I am down there right next to the ball being snapped. And if I can get off right when the ball does, I've got a big advantage. He said, and what would happen if I blink and they snap the ball? Well, that guy'd get a step on me. So what he was trying to do is not blink. And he was touching his eyeball. I mean, he was looking for an advantage, mm-hmm. As we all were. Mm-hmm. But Lilly, that right tackle was a great position for him because he was huge, big guy, but very quick and very studious of the game. So was Randy White that played that after Lilly left. But Lilly, I looked at him one day in the locker room. He looked like he was 2 feet thick and 4 foot wide, and it was. But he would do anything it'd take to get that game, to win that game, but we had some great players. Jethro Pugh. Jethro, you wouldn't think he could play football for anything in the world, but he was exceptional. Larry Cole, free agent. He played left defensive end and left defensive tackle, and he got to play as a rookie starter. And so, and then we had Mel Renfro at defensive back. Later we got I can't think of his name. Guy we got from the Packers, and then
Herb Adderley.
Herb Adderley, yeah, and then we had, of course, Cliff Harris and Cornell Green, basketball player in college. These guys are just, they melted together. They played together. Dave Edwards, defensive end at Auburn, they made a linebacker out of it. He was just a naturally strong guy. They used him, the way he handled tight ends, as instruction for almost all the linebackers in college and pros. These guys were fantastic.
D.D., the really interesting thing about your career is it kind of spans 2 generations of Cowboys.
Yeah.
And you're naming all these guys from the 60s and early 70s, and then you also played with all the ones in the late 70s that obviously transitioned into the 80s. So it's really interesting getting your feedback on this stuff.
Well, that's what was great about Landry's coaching. And I always said it, I don't know how many guys can do that. He transitioned from the old 60s, early 70s to the Super Bowl wins in Our first Super Bowl was in 71, and then our next one was in 77. Coach Landry transitioned. He filled it in. Pittsburgh couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Under Chuck Noll, they ran through those guys they had, and then that was it.
Mm-hmm.
But they won a few more than we did, but we should have won more Super Bowls. But that's what was so great about Landry. I've always thought that anybody can transition to that is amazing. Yeah, we transitioned. I mean, it worked out so well. We just had enough good leaders to make that transition. And of course, Tony Dorsett helped. He got there in 77, and these guys are complaining about how much money they gave him. I said, guys, if we can get to the Super Bowl, it's going to pay for it. Pay for itself. And that's what we did. We won it in 77. So,
talking about Tony Dorsett, he brought an element that you guys hadn't had up until then. That kind of speed breakaway back. What memories of some of the offensive personnel? Let's start with some of the quarterbacks. Don Meredith.
Well, Don was such a great quarterback. And the thing was, in 1968, when I got here, when we would have a tough game and it looked like we're going to lose, the fans in the Cotton Bowl would start booing Don and saying, we want Morton, because Craig would come in when we'd 21 points ahead somebody. Landry put Craig Morton in. Well, the fans thought Morton and Craig would come in and throw 90-yard passes to Bob Hayes. and so everybody thought Morton was the greatest, and he was until he got hurt. But that just crushed Don Meredith, and so he retired early. We got Craig Morton, who was a great quarterback. He could throw the ball a mile, and then he got hurt, and it kind of took away some of the things that he could do. And then we get Roger, and at first Roger, the thing was Landry would get upset with him because he'd scramble, and he wanted someone, because the line wants a quarterback that's in the pocket, but so Roger gets his shoulder separated. We played the L.A. Rams, and middle linebacker crushed him, and it separated his shoulder, but he came back and he learned to stay in the pocket better. But also, it's kind of like Brett Favre. When that guy scrambled, he made things happen. So, Landry kind of learned from that too. But Staubach was a never say die defeated. He kind of like Dan Reeves. I mean, these guys and Mike Ditka, they were so competitive, it's unbelievable. And then we got the guy Jackie Smith from St. Louis come down here, and he was even more competitive than all of them. I mean, Roger wanted to win the mile run every Monday that we played, and after the games, and Jackie Smith beat him and everybody else. But the Danny White, I'm telling you, Danny White was a great quarterback after Staubach, and he was a great punter. Never shanked the ball. I snapped the balls to him all the time, and he never shanked the ball. He never kicked the ground. In training camp, Brad, the centers had to go out early. They'd bring about 40 kickers out there, see if they could find one, and I'd be snapping. These guys would punt the ball 80 yards, 10-second hang time, and then Landry would walk up on the field and they'd start kicking the ground, shanking the ball. It was amazing. But Danny White never did any of that. He was so consistent, so good. And we should have won more Super Bowls than we won. We should have beaten Baltimore. We should have beaten Pittsburgh the second time we played them in 78. So, but these other guys was Dwayne Thomas, Calvin Hill. Calvin was a great runner until he got a turf toe, and we'd never heard of a turf toe. What's a turf toe? And until people start getting them, and it would slow you down for sure. Don Perkins, old time Cowboy, was a great player. Walt Garrison, John Nowin, Ralph Neely, Rayfield Wright. Cowboys always had some real good offensive linemen, and Pettis Norman, and then Billy Joe Dupree, and all kind of tight ends that came in, and Crosby, and and then Bob Hayes, and Drew Pearson, and Preston Pearson, and so these guys, I'm just as I can remember.
It's a who's who.
Yeah, it is.
It's a who's who. You know, D.D. couple guys that came in later on when you were with the Cowboys, Ed Too Tall Jones, and you referenced Harvey Martin a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you talk about those guys?
Well, Ed was exceptional. Number one, he was so tall, he could get his arms up, but he learned that position. He was a good man. He was a good team player. Harvey was quick but Ed was steady. And I'm not saying that Harvey wasn't, but Ed was steady, and that's the strong side, and that end usually would crash when you pull the guards and want to run a strong side sweep or something. That end has got to bust up all the blockers, smash it up, and so he may not get as many traps as the weak side defensive end. So, but Ed was a great teammate, still is today. We play some golf together. Ed's just a good man. He he had a great lawyer. He made good money, but in 1979 he went to boxing.
Yeah.
And Thomas Henderson got kicked off the team, and we lost to L.A. in the playoffs, and I got to blame them for us not going to the playoffs that year, but or making it too far anyway.
Hey, well, man, you guys were there in the 70s. It seemed like every year it was you guys, in the championship game, and one play here, one play there. Hey, with the nickname, the Doomsday Defense, did you guys embrace that?
Well, I never cared for it. It didn't, it was just, to me, that was what they were when I got here. Mm-hmm. And they made that, and then, people say, well, you played with the Doomsday Defense. I say, which one? The first one or the second one? Where you had John Dutton or Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, as opposed to Bob Lilly and some of those guys, Larry Cole and Jethro Pugh and George Andre. So it's kind of confusing. You could say Doomsday 1 and 2, but I don't think the second Doomsday ever considered themselves to be the Doomsday that the first one was.
Yeah.
So, but that's what, I guess it's what sports writers do. They try to make up something.
D.D., the other really interesting thing about your career is that's saying that, there's a hole in Texas Stadium so God can let his favorite team. Tell me about that. How did you come up with that?
I didn't come up with it. Everybody was, it was around the locker room, And so what happens, you go to the Super Bowl and you got all these reporters down there. And I told one of them I had something to say. So I just gave him that quote, and boy, they nabbed me with it. And now when I go sign autographs, they want me to put that on the picture. It's a paragraph, So
hey, I tell you what, man, how smart are you to throw that out there? And the iconic phrase is tagged to you. You as far as signing the autograph, you need a stamp. You need to put that on a stamp, and boom, there you go.
Well, that's why I was really in Maryland. I went up to sign autographs. So, and they had it printed out. They put the hole in the roof so God could watch his favorite team play. I had to put that on several, and But anyway, you're right. It's a tag, and I was when guys started promoting themselves in professional football, it just rubbed me the wrong way. 'Cause nobody in any team I'd ever played on promoted themselves through what they said, the way they performed, like coming off with your helmet, running off the field with your helmet off, or jumping over the pile and jumping up and coming up as if you made the tackle or something like that. It wasn't me. And so when they tagged me with that, I couldn't wait to tell people, say, hey, everybody in the locker room was saying something like that, and I just happened to say it to a reporter, and bang. So that's what I'm famous for now.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
D.D., incredible career. Another question, and I could go on for hours.
Yeah.
You guys were so close, winning the game. When you finally won the Super Bowl, what were the feelings that you guys had as a team?
Well, it was amazing because the year before we should have beaten the Baltimore Colts, and we outplayed them. But we learned that nobody remembers the loser in the Super Bowl. Everybody remembers the winner. And so that next year, we start playing. We lost to St. Louis Cardinals, real bad, and our record was about 4-6, and Landry, right before the meeting on Monday after that loss to St. Louis, said, "Look, guys, you can go out and do whatever you want to. You can play touch football if you want to." He said, and he folded up his report and just walked out the door. And so Bob Lilly, Leroy Jordan, all the leaders of the team had something to say. He says, "Guys, we got guys here that are working before football practice." He says, "We're going to play the way we practice." And from then on, man, it was all out in practice. We won the rest of our games and went to the Super Bowl and beat Miami in Super Bowl 7. And it was a phenomenal thing. Losing the first one, it just killed us. And but going back for the second one, I don't know if Landry planned that whole thing or if he was really disgusted, but it sure got the team together. And whereas there were a lot of guys working half the day and then playing football, the way it used to be, but not anymore. People quit their jobs; they made football their life, and that's when we really started, making all the playoffs and being a winning team.
Yeah, an incredible run you guys had. D.D., thank you so much for sharing, your memories of being one of the Cowboy greats, man. And like I said, of all the guys I've talked to, I could sit and talk to you for hours on it. and not only do I really appreciate your time, I know the fans do as well. What are you doing now?
As little as I can. I got to mow my lawn here at some point. I'm retired, Brad. I'm so glad I could do it. And I retired in 2012, and so sometimes I want to go out and get a part-time job, but I guess I might as well shoot myself if I do that. Sure enough, I'd get down to Home Depot or somewhere and start working with somebody trying to sell something, and they curse me out or something. I'd be back to football again. But I'm loving this. My wife's kind of ill, and I'm trying to caregive her, and trying to also be of service to a lot of other people in church and the people I know. So it's a good life, and the thing is, Brad, I went through a divorce after football and lost a lot of things, didn't save a lot of money, but I didn't take my pension early. And, that's another God thing. I didn't know how to manage money. My goodness, that's amazing. And I didn't make a whole lot. So, but here I am. I got to work 26 years in the fertilizer industry. And and last worked out pretty good. Real good, matter of fact. So I have no complaints whatsoever. And I wish the Cowboys. One thing I want to tell you, Brad, you're getting old when you used to be the most popular Mississippi State player that played for the Cowboys. And so now they got Dak Prescott. And nobody, and then I went and made a talk one night, and the guy was wearing a number 50 jersey. And I said, "Oh, that's pretty neat." And I turned around, and it was Sean Lee. and then at church, I was telling this guy, I said, Benton, I said, I wish they'd sing more of the old gospels. And he said, "Let me tell you something, D.D. They're not singing to you." So, you're getting old when some of that stuff starts happening. So it's a good life, and I sure appreciate you wanting to talk to me. That's for sure.
Well, look, D.D., man, the pleasure was all mine. I love this stuff, and I know the fans do as well. And man, you are. Man, the career you had and the teams you were on, an amazing journey, an amazing life. Thank you so much for sharing it with the fans today.
Oh, man. Thank you, Brad, for inviting me.